In this video, I want to answer the question, what is software as a service? There have always been a lot of models for how we can buy stuff. We can buy it outright, or we can take out a lease to spread our payments, but retain responsibility for maintaining it. Or we could take out something like an operating lease, where we effectively pay someone else to maintain it, and we get the benefit of using it. Today, software is as important a part in running our world as buildings and trucks and tools and machinery. So it's no surprise that we also find a variety of different ways to pay for the software that our businesses and increasingly our private lives depend upon. One of the commonest ways that we see for paying for software these days is software as a service, or SaaS. But this is nothing more than a particular way to pay for access to a software and a license that allows you to use it. For those of us who are over 40, perhaps the most familiar way of paying for software, and it's still widely used, is buying it outright. You pay the software company and they deliver the software to you, either on some form of recorded media in the old days, or now by download. You install the software and you can use it in perpetuity. If you want to upgrade the software, then you can download the upgrades, sometimes for a fee, but if you choose not to upgrade it, then you can still continue to use the software until it stops working. The alternative to a one-time payment is to pay by installments, and software as a service is rather like a rental agreement in the consumer world. In the corporate world, it's very much like an operating lease. In an operating lease, or in a consumer rental contract, you pay money to acquire the right to use the asset, whether it is a piece of equipment, a car, a building, or in this case, software. But you don't own it. The advantage this has, however, is that in our operating lease model, the responsibility for maintaining the equipment, or in this case, the software, remains with the creator, with the vendor. This means that the user gets continuously updated software as part of their payment agreement. For as long as you continue to pay for the software, you get the latest possible version, and all the responsibilities for maintaining it and fixing problems remains with the vendor. So this leads us to a definition of software as a service. Software as a service is a software distribution model in which a provider hosts the software and makes it available to customers over the internet. The provider takes responsibility for maintaining it in exchange for a regular payment stream. For commercial software, there is usually also a service level agreement which guarantees a certain minimum level of service from the software. Software as a service is also known as cloud computing, hosted software, or on-demand software. The user gets access to the software, the service, along with updates and maintenance, which keep it relevant and competitive with alternative options. They receive a standard of service which their business can rely upon in exchange for a highly predictable flow of expense. Contrast this with either the model of buying the software or of developing it yourself, and you'll see that the expenditure flows, which may be higher or lower, are going to be a lot more predictable. A fixed amount per month or per year, rather than having to figure out when you're going to have peaks and troughs in expenditure and unexpected expenditure when maintenance requirements raise their ugly heads. Now, this isn't a video about law, But let's have a look at some of the basic features of software as a service contracts. Typically, the user buys a service on a subscription basis with limited forward commitments. Typically, your maximum commitment is to the end of the current year. The subscription costs are usually dictated by two things: the level of service or functionality that you need for your business, and the number of users that will be using the software. By the way, this means easy upscaling. If you acquire more staff who need to use the software, you just buy more licenses. If the nature of your business changes and you need additional functionality, then you upgrade the service levels. In return, the supplier will maintain the software. They'll keep it running properly, and they will upgrade it periodically in the background without you having to do anything or to make any changes. One of the principal benefits for the user is that all the hardware on which the software runs is maintained by the supplier. The user doesn't need to maintain any hardware apart from their own user computers. Typically, once you have determined the contract and the service levels within it, there will be no additional fees for maintenance, support, and upgrades. And usually the contract will specify service levels like uptime, for example, availability for more than 99.5% of the time, and also for things like security and data management. So, what types of software do we see software as a service contracts working with? Well, pretty much anything. Office software like Microsoft, Google and Zoho. Productivity software like Evernote, Notion and ClickUp. Entertainment software like Amazon Prime, Netflix and Disney+. Enterprise operational and back office software like SAP, Oracle and Salesforce. Communication software like Zoom, Slack and BlueJeans. And project management software like Monday, Asana and Jira. Now, in fact, software as a service is the most common of a spectrum of different cloud-based computing services that we find. And whilst if you're not in the IT world, you may not encounter these terms, it's probably worth giving you some indication of what PaaS and IaaS stand for too. PaaS stands for Platform as a Service. Platform as a Service offers a remote technology platform on which organizations can develop their own solutions and later host them. This removes the need to invest in a large IT infrastructure, the network and the servers that you need to host your software. This allows the organization to focus its efforts on developing the software it needs and allows them to scale their deployment easily by procuring more and more platform infrastructure as and when they need it. So it shouldn't come as a surprise when I tell you that IaaS stands for Infrastructure as a Service. This allows an organization to buy all of the servers, storage, processing capability, networking that it needs to run its entire business. IaaS allows an organization to buy a virtual data center. This means it doesn't need to invest in any of the hardware, any of the infrastructure, and any of the expertise and support to run it. It just specifies what it needs and raises or decreases its specification as its needs change. So why use this model of procurement? Why use SaaS, PaaS or IaaS? What are the benefits of software as a service? Primarily, software as a service removes the need for an organization to install the software that it needs and to maintain that installation. It gives them predictability of cash flow as well. It can also reduce costs by reducing the need for infrastructure and for skilled expertise. That skilled expertise resides with the supplier, who can gain massive economies of scale by training up the people it needs to serve multiple customers. And there is flexibility too. The buying organisation can either dial up or dial down the amount of service and the number of seats that it uses as its business either grows or contracts. End users can also get a better experience. There is absolute repeatability. They get exactly the same service wherever they sit. And often with software as a service platforms, you can use the software in mobile form as well as on desktop. The scale of software as a service also means that the provider gets lots of user intelligence and has the economies of scale that allow it to develop their software and grow its capability and improve its functionality rapidly and effectively. And with a dedicated expert team, they can typically resolve bugs and maintenance issues quickly and effectively too. So, in summary, the buying organisation gets reduced costs of hardware, of infrastructure and premises. They get quick, effective and inexpensive setup, controlled and scalable costs, and highly predictable cash flows, automatic maintenance and updates, and reliable service levels. Software that runs on multiple device types and different operating systems, and often the ability to customize or white label the service so that it appears bespoke to them. White labeling is the ability to take the service that you get and to put your own badge upon it. This can be as simple as rendering the colours to match your corporate brand and sticking logos on the corner of pages. Or it can be as sophisticated as tailoring workflows and processes to fit your operational structures. All of this, of course, sounds really dandy. So, what are the downsides of software as a service? Because if there aren't any downsides, why don't we all do that with every single piece of software? Well, of course, you know that there are going to be some disadvantages that you'll be weighing against the benefits. Firstly, there is the question of data ownership. Will you exclusively own all the data, or will they? Or will your agreement mean that there is some shared ownership? And typically more important still is data security. Where is your data being stored? Is it being stored in your own jurisdiction or another jurisdiction? And what are the standards of data protection that the host offers? Are there legislative or regulatory requirements that this supplier may or may not be able to meet? And critically, what are the protections against data breaches or calamitous data losses? And what about data location? Where will the data be stored physically? Is it secure? And where is it geographically? What is the political environment of the location where it's stored? Which brings us on to the stability of the provider. How confident can you be about the long-term viability of your provider? Because not only are they storing your data, but often critical business operations will depend upon your access to this service. And even if your provider has long-term stability, what about your confidence in their long-term business strategy? What kind of decisions might they make in the future that could impact upon your business? To a large degree, a chunk of your business is in their hands. Even if they do something as simple as making a big update, that can require potentially retraining of your staff, which could be costly and disruptive. And finally, what are all the business-oriented technical questions that you need to ask and get good answers to? Your operational teams and your IT experts need to be articulating a whole series of questions about access, response times, customization and process, and you need to get good answers to those questions before you proceed. Like so many things, software as a service is a brilliant business model that has huge benefits, but it also has other implications. And as a business person, you and your colleagues need to investigate the balance of advantages and disadvantages before making your decision. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be making loads more great management courses videos for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of them. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.